The call came like a crack of thunder in the middle of an ordinary day, shattering the quiet life of a man who had already lost more than most people could imagine. Arav Malik was sitting on the sun-lit steps of the small community library, watching his 6-year-old son sketch clouds in a notebook when his phone buzzed with an unknown number. He almost ignored it. Wrong numbers were common, but something made him pick up. What he heard wasn't a voice meant for him. It was a trembling whisper, fragile as a drying leaf in the noon wind. A woman gasping for breath, saying she didn't want to die alone, saying she dialed the wrong number, saying she didn't have long left, and then the line went silent except for her uneven breathing. That moment, that voice, would rewrite both of their lives in ways neither of them could have imagined. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of unexpected connections, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to 4K Stories. Your support helps bring stories like this to life. Arav didn't know why the call struck him so deeply. Maybe because he had watched his wife slip away in a hospital bed 2 years earlier. Maybe because he knew the sound of someone fighting to stay awake, fighting to stay alive. Or maybe because he had felt helpless once, and he refused to feel that again while someone on the other side of a call begged the universe for company. He called back, no answer, called again, still nothing. Finally, on the third try, the call picked up, and a faint voice returned. Her name was Seraphine Vale, 30, 2 years old, heiress to Vale Financial Group, a name I've only knew from newspapers and distant worlds he'd never step into. She didn't explain much, just that she had collapsed in her guest house after ignoring weeks of doctors' warnings. She had dialed the wrong number while reaching for her assistant, but she wasn't afraid of the mistake. She just didn't want to lose consciousness alone. Arav told her he would stay on call until help arrived, but she whispered no ambulances. She didn't want cameras, reporters, breaking news alerts about her failing health. She just wanted someone to talk to, someone who didn't want anything from her, someone who wasn't waiting for her to die. The sun warmed Arav's arms as he grabbed his son's hand and rushed toward his old mud-splattered car. He didn't know her. He didn't know what he was doing. He only knew he couldn't ignore her voice. Using her hesitant directions, he drove to the far outskirts of the city where tall trees swayed in the daylight, and hidden among them was a white, stone guest house with huge glass windows glowing under the afternoon sky. Arav carried his son in one arm and pushed the door open with the other. He found Seraphine lying on the floor, her long dark hair scattered over a pale rug, her breathing faint but still there. She looked nothing like a billionaire heiress. No expensive makeup, no entourage, no shield of perfection. Just a woman who had been alone for far too long. Arav checked her pulse, whispered reassuring words, and gently moved her to a nearby couch. His son, Kyan, stood quietly at her feet, clutching his tiny sketchbook, sensing the seriousness of the moment. Seraphine's eyes fluttered open, and when they settled on Arav's face, they softened with relief. She apologized for dragging him into her problems. Arav told her she didn't owe him anything, that kindness didn't need a reason, that sometimes strangers care more than the people supposed to love us. As the daylight filled the glass walls of the guest house, Seraphine slowly regained her strength. She explained her condition, an inherited heart disorder, worsened by years of stress and loneliness. Her family cared more about protecting the company name than protecting her. They wanted her hidden, always out of sight, always silent about her health. She had spent her life in boardrooms and empty mansions, surrounded by people but known by none. Arav could hear the exhaustion behind her words, the exhaustion of being admired by the world yet ignored by those closest to her. Days passed quietly after the incident, but the bond created in those fragile moments didn't disappear. Seraphine called again a week later, this time not in panic, but with a trembling laugh. She wanted to thank Arav for helping her. She wanted to know how Kyan was doing. She wanted to hear a voice that didn't speak to her like she was a fragile investment. Arav would talk from his small two-room home during daylight, sitting near the window where sunlight washed in. They talked about simple things, tea recipes, childhood memories, places they wished they could visit. Seraphine told him she envied the simplicity of the life he had, the sunlit kitchen, the laughter of a child, a home where love wasn't measured in stock values. Arav didn't see it then, but the calls slowly turned into a lifeline for both of them. Seraphine learned to step outside her gilded cage, even joining Arav and Kyan at the community park during daytime. She would sit on a bench under the wide blue sky, breathing in the ordinary warmth of life. Kyan liked her instantly. She wasn't like the other adults. She listened, really listened. She would ask about his drawings, smile when he talked about clouds, even laugh when he smudged her expensive dress with paint he forgot to wash off his hands. And Seraphine would relax, as if every second spent with them added minutes back to her heart. But while daylight brought hope, reality crept in like a shadow. Her condition was worsening faster than she admitted. Arav noticed her hands trembling, her breath shortening. He asked if she was seeing her doctors. She changed the subject. She didn't want hospitals. She didn't want pity. She didn't want to live her last days as a patient. She wanted to feel alive. One bright afternoon, standing under the warm sky near the quiet lake where Kyan fed ducks, Seraphine suddenly collapsed. Arav caught her just before her head hit the ground. Her heartbeat fluttered under his fingertips, unsteady like a candle fighting wind. She whispered that she didn't want to leave yet, not when she had finally started to feel what life was supposed to feel like. Arav carried her to the car and drove, with urgency, with fear, with memories of losing his wife, drowning him, but Seraphine grabbed his hand mid-drive, begging him not to take her to a hospital filled with cameras waiting to expose her weakness. She wanted peace. She wanted honesty. She wanted time. Arav looked at her fragile face, illuminated by the sunlight filtering through the car window, and he realized something. She wasn't running from treatment. She had already been given her timeline. There was no cure left. The doctors had already said she wouldn't live long. She simply hadn't told anyone. Arav drove her back to the guest house, not because he gave up, but because he wanted her to choose how she lived whatever time she had left. For the first time, Seraphine cried, not softly, but painfully, crying for the years she spent alone, crying for the moments she had missed, crying for the love she never received but finally tasted in the simplest of gestures from a man and his little boy. The next few weeks became a series of quiet miracles. Arav brought her home during the day. She helped Kyan paint. She watered Arev's tiny garden. She learned the beauty of an ordinary afternoon. She said these were the best days of her life, days she wished she had known sooner. Arav found himself wishing he could offer her a lifetime of them, but sunlight eventually dims. One evening, as the sky brightened with soft daylight colors, Seraphine asked to sit outside. Arav wrapped a shawl around her shoulders. She leaned her head on his arm and said she wished she had met him earlier. She wished she had lived a different life. Arav told her she wasn't alone anymore. She held his hand, tears dropping onto her skin, and whispered the words that broke him open. "Stay with me tonight." He did, holding her gently as she drifted into a peaceful sleep in the soft light of day. She took her last breath against his shoulder, wearing the calmest smile he had ever seen on her, a woman who finally found belonging, even if it came at the end. In the following days, the news broke everywhere. Billionaire Heiress passes away quietly. No one knew that her final days were filled with warmth and family. No one knew she spent her last breaths in the arms of someone who cared for her without wanting anything in return. Arav didn't tell the world. It was their story, a story of a wrong call that saved two souls in different ways, a story of kindness that arrived unexpectedly, a story of love that didn't need a happy ending to be real. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to 4K Stories. Your engagement helps these emotional journeys reach more people.